You're tuned in to the Binge It Babe podcast with your host, me, Candace Estelle. All right, babes, let's get binging. This is one of my favorite foods, not just growing up, but of all time. And since I am that Texas girl, let you know that nothing makes me happier than a barbacoa taco. I made some barbacoa for this episode, obviously, but to be fair, the moment they mentioned barbacoa in the show that we'll be talking about today, I thought, yes, my opportunity has arisen. I will make barbacoa. It will be fantastic. This is my second round of barbacoa. I did eat it the first day and I just thought, so good. It's so good. And I saved enough to be able to do round two. And that is one of the wonderful things about living alone is that I used to make barbacoa and there was only enough for one meal. And it takes a long time and it's a difficult meat to find where I am. It's beef cheek, at least the way I make it. And it is this, just ooey gooey, delicious meat. And because the cheek has a lot of fat in it, when you cook it for a really long time and it renders down, and my mouth is watering. I want to eat so bad. As it renders down, it creates this really good, like, broth around it. And I do really basic, minimal um, spices here. It's salt, it's cumino, so cumin. It's not, I don't think I even use garlic or anything like that. And I don't do spice either in this because I want it to be as pure as it can be. Now, when you eat these street tacos, you are supposed to do some onion on top and some cilantro. And I don't like either of those. Pero no, not for me. No, thank you. So, I don't have onion or cilantro on this. And my limes are just messed up. So a little bit of lime juice. But for me, this is how I like it. It's pure. It's home to me because I am from Texas. And so it's just really exciting. I'm going to eat these tacos now, and then I'm going to get into the episode with you guys. And what are we going to be doing today? I've given you a couple of hints. My outfit, it's kind of uniformy, if you will. It's my flight suit, so it's the best I've got because I happen to not have this job and never have. And a Texas-based food. What could it be? We're going to do 911 Lone Star. See you then. Yeah? All right, and welcome to the pod, babes. Now, we are trying it a little different than how I did Supernatural. I went ahead and just ate the meal ahead of time. You can see it. It's not as awkward because I really was hungry and I wanted to eat those tacos. And on top of that, I'm also going to do the whole show in terms of binging it, but I'm going to only record one season at a time, which I think is way, way, way more helpful because when it came to Supernatural, I was talking as fast as I could and I just wasn't able to get all of the information in that I wanted to get in. So here we are, and now I have the ability to slow down and give way more opinion and have more of a conversation. So, if you haven't guessed by the fact that I'm eating tacos, barbacoa tacos specifically, I talked about it being a Texas based show. We're going to go ahead and do 911 Lone Star. I do believe I mentioned that, but here we go. So, I originally watched this show this week, or it's the beginning of the week, so last week. And I watched this show because I was watching my reels, and then there was a show clip that popped up, and I thought, Oh, okay. I'll take a minute. I'll see what this is about. And then I was hooked. I don't watch a lot of dramatic stuff most of the time, or at least I think I don't. I'm one of those people who's like, I'm always going to just watch the comedy. But I was hooked so fast, like so unbelievably fast that I was so excited to get to do this because this isn't the type of show I normally watch. So I was excited to try something outside of what I normally do. And it also felt very manageable because it currently only has 4 seasons. And if I'm being really honest, when I started watching it, I thought the show was over, which is why I watched it and thought, oh, I'll do a Binge It Babe for this. The show is over. That was one of the things I said I wanted to be a rule, is that if the show is done, that's when I'll come in and I will talk about it. But it's not. And as someone who finished the 4th season, I can tell you now, can't wait for the 5th season. Now, apparently, with Lone Star, there is a lot going on up in the air if Fox is going to renew it after the 5th season. We are losing a main character in the 5th season, which I won't bring up right now because it's just, upsetting A, and B, a huge spoiler for the fact that today I'll only be talking about season 1. But what I will say is that it will be a super bummer if it is canceled after the 5th season. However, it really did seem like it was completely wrapped up after the 4th season. And on the streaming service I watched it on, it showed a start and end date. And I'm not used to that if a show is still going. So I also feel like that's a streaming issue that they should fix. Um, but I don't want to be a jerk and say who the streaming platform is because that's not my style most of the time. Okay, so let's move on. I have notes for the pilot episode because so much happened. But then from there, I'm just going to be chatting about it. So, pilot episode, let me pull up my notes. Now, the pilot episode is called Pilot. And if you're new here or you haven't listened before, or you're like, oh, let me listen because I might be interested in watching this show, I'm about to spoil the absolute shit out of this show. There will be I won't leave anything left that won't be spoiled, okay? This is egg salad in the back of your car for 10 days, okay? It's going to be spoiled. So there's your warning. Let's move on. I also want to say hey, hi, hello to anybody who's watching me live right now. It's a little bit nerve wracking, but honestly, I think it'll help because now I feel a little more lively and a little bit more like, people are here. We're having a conversation. It is a conversation. And I think that's nice, right? Okay. So 911 Lone Star. For one, I have a hard time and I accidentally always say 911 and then I immediately feel kind of sad. And I've done that since I was a kid where I'll put numbers together, specifically those numbers, and I'll just be like, oh, what? Oh, tragedy. And I'll move on. Um, so let's go. The pilot, season 1, episode 1. The gut punch. Okay. So the moment Judd came on screen, I was like, oh, because I watched True Blood and he was a bit younger in True Blood, but it was him. And I was like, wait, what are you doing? I haven't seen you since True Blood. What's going on, man? And then he's being a firefighter. And I don't know why I didn't put together that this show was going to be as intense as it is. But my God, because they're at this giant fire and it's the 126. It's down in Austin, Texas, probably around College Station, I'm going to assume, but I'm not totally sure. And they are out there. He gets the call where it's like, hey, I don't even remember what the thing is that they're near, but if it touches fire, it's going to go kaboom. And he's doing his best to warn his team. And they had been having fun. They're putting out this fire. It's a good time. And then he's running to be like, hey, stop, get away. And they don't get it, which I think is kind of bananas because I feel like if you're a firefighter and you're literally in the middle of fighting a fire and you see someone like doing this kind of thing and screaming really loud that you wouldn't continue to play around. But they do, and honestly, I don't think them playing around really plays a part in the fact that literally everyone dies because it was it was quick, man, and I kind of knew this about myself, but it's something I kind of forget until I'm confronted with it again, which is that firefighters and firefighting make me very emotional. Like very, very emotional. Um, and there's a good reason for that, obviously. I'll dive into it in just a second, though. So he's waving his arms, and you see him kind of get blasted away because he was far enough away, I think, that he was okay. And everyone else is just obliterated. They are, cremated for free. They're gone. And it is horrible. It's the first scene in the entire show. And I was just sitting on the train, like, and then we go and we're in New York and we're with Rob Lowe. And Rob Lowe is the reason I started watching the show because he was in the reel in the little scene I saw and I was like, what's this about? I feel like I've seen most of the recent Rob Lowe stuff. And then I look it up and it's that show and it's on the streaming service. I almost said it. It's on the streaming service that I'm using. And I said, oh, okay, let me give it a try because this is an hour and a half long train and I would like to watch something new. And so we see Rob Lowe. He's in New York. He's a firefighter. His son, also a firefighter. And it's just adorable, in my opinion. Heartbreaking, but also adorable. And if you're like, why would it be heartbreaking? Because being a firefighter is a terrifying job. They're legitimate heroes, and the fact that you would have to go into the field every day and know that there's a really good chance that you might not come home. And if you might not come home, maybe your kid doesn't come home. And I just feel like that's not stress that I or most people could tolerate, you know? So they're New York firefighters, and I immediately am confused because I'm perfectly aware that this show is called Lone Star. And as someone from Texas, I'm perfectly aware that Texas is the Lone Star State, and nothing could be further than the Lone Star State than New York, unless maybe California. But for sure, it's New York, I think. It's even further, it's further away distance wise, even. So then we're talking to him. He's talking to his son. His son is like, I want to propose to so and so. I legitimately don't catch the name. And I don't get any indication that this son is gay. And I think that that's really beautiful. I know we're all like, yeah, yeah, he's gay. Who cares? That's right. No one cares. It's not like a big reveal. It's not a thing. It's nothing. And it's one of those situations that happened where it took me a moment and I realized, oh, I really need to consider my own preconceived notions. Because TK, who is Rob Lowe's son in the show, Rob Lowe's name is Owen, so I'm going to start going by character names. TK is like, hey, I'm going to propose to, again, I don't remember the name. And Rob Lowe's just like, okay, I guess. And TK is like, "What's your problem? You don't think we're meant to be?" And he goes, "I just think you guys are really young and maybe you're rushing into this and, just consider that this might not be the right time." And I just got no notion that TK was going to be gay in this show. And then I realized that it really doesn't matter and maybe I should check myself for the fact that I thought immediately, obviously he's going to propose to a woman. And I don't really feel bad about it, but it was a surprise when they pan over to the boyfriend and you're like, "Oh, didn't catch that." But all right. I mean, to be fair, that was my thought is I thought, "Oh, all right. It's nice that that wasn't a factor." And I think that that's a really beautiful thing that we're living in. I mean, this show came out in 2020, but I'm living in 2024 currently. And that just gets to be a storyline without it being like a thing, you know? It's just like, here's my cute son, he is gay. All right. He's also a firefighter. Awesome, you know? I'm super supportive of him because there's nothing to not support because he's my kid and that's all that matters. Beautiful. And I love that that's the writing that's done. But I digress and we'll go back to we see Owen and he's at the doctor because as soon as he was with his kid and he started coughing and I was like, mm, mm. He's coughing. He's like, real coughs. Um, and then you see him at the doctor, and we find out, oh, it's lung cancer. And I was just like, oh my gosh, gut punch. Okay. Lung cancer. Okay. And it's like, it's scary. And I'm like, oh, was his character a smoker or lived near a smoker? Is it totally random that he has lung cancer? Because this is intense. Oh, no, no, no. It's not random. He was a firefighter during 9/11, and immediately the like the American in me just clammed right up because obviously this is an incredibly serious thing to be talking about, and it's a lot less fun than I normally am, but n- nothing gets me as much, maybe mass shootings nowadays, but nothing really gets me like 9/11 did and continues to. It's one of those things where every time I hear about it, I don't necessarily clam up in terms of being like, "Oh, I can't think about it, talk about it." It's just like I remember, right? Which is the slogan, it's never forget. And don't worry, I haven't, but I was young when it happened. I was a child. And I remember being pulled out of school, all the schools shutting down. I was in Texas at this time. I remember being picked up, being very confused as to what was going on. I had not seen any TV at this point, no footage. So it literally was just, hey, school's done today. We're done. Everyone get out. Go home. It's September 11th, so this is the beginning of the school year. And you're just like, oh, okay. It's a hot, dry day in Texas. And I remember being picked up and taken home, and the person who picked me up being like, you know what's going on? And me being like, no, I don't know what's going on. And then I remember being home and the TV being on and just seeing the planes over and over and over because it just kept replaying and replaying and replaying. And I couldn't understand what was happening because I was quite young, but I knew that it was real and that that was what was scary because it was the first time I did not grow up in an intelligent household. So it's like the first time I've ever seen the news on in the house. And I believe I was probably 9 years old. And it's the first time where I am seeing the news, and this is what the news is. And I just remember um, just watching it. I felt like for days, while I'm told how many people are dead and how many people are dying and how many people are stuck and we're losing this and we're losing that. And I also grew up in a horrible, horrible environment with horrible people. And so I also got to hear a lot of terrorist talk, Muslim talk. These are bad people. They're all bad people. If they're this, which was Muslim, Arabic, however it was brought up to me, I don't even think I heard the word Islam until I was an adult because it was just Muslim. And that I was taught. And it was, they're all evil, all of them. And I remember being like, what? All of these people are evil. They're all trying to kill us. It was also that, is that I didn't even grow up in a normal environment. So I grew up in a scary, very radical, very January 6th type of environment. And then I remember not being comforted, but being told why I should be scared. And that that they were going to come for us too, right? I believe the Twin Towers gets hit and then the Pentagon got something near it. And I moved to Colorado a few years later, and I remember that being a conversation was we're a little nervous moving to Colorado because that's where NORAD is, and that's the first place a terrorist is going to hit now. And that was just a theme growing up, and I don't recognize it until I think about it, and then I remember how often I was scared of terrorists. And I think it's really good to equate that fear to like the people, I want to say probably in the 50s, the 40s and 50s, 40s, 50, I don't know. I wasn't there. If you can't tell, I'm not that old. Um, where they they were terrified of a nuclear attack. You know, it's the bomb shelters. It's that fear. It's do you fit in your refrigerator, Indiana Jones, you know? So watching a TV show that touches on 9/11, I don't think is something I've ever done. And just, it's difficult every time I even think about it because it's not history to me, it's a memory. And I think that's a big difference, right? Like, I think about World War II and I am very saddened by it. And I am very uncomfortable by some parallels that I'm living through now. And I'm very nervous and sad for the people who did live through it, who have generational trauma from this. But I didn't experience it. And it is so much different when you are alive when the historical event happens and you were perfectly aware and you were watching it in real time that this is a historical event and not in a cool fun way, in like a terrifying, this is a dark scar on society kind of way. And so I really was grappling with that in the first, I don't know, 5 minutes of this show. And then I feel like they talked about a statistic. I'm not sure if it's right, but it probably is, about how more than twice as many people that were lost in 9/11 will be lost having tried to save the other people because of fallout like lung cancer. And I don't know, like that ripple effect, you know? And to anyone who actually did lose someone during or around or because 9/11, like, I am so sorry for your loss. And I hope that media portraying it in any respect is respectful and okay with you. And I hope that after 23 years almost, that you are able to move on from it and grow, and that it hasn't taken everything from you forever. And I hope you know that there are still people who were even very little when it happened who remember it and don't take it lightly and care. You know, never forget, unless something happens to me. I never will. And I don't think most Americans will. And I don't think a lot of people in the world will. But, you know, let's move on. It was really emotional for me. So we see this team in Texas explode, basically. And then we get a cancer diagnosis. And then we have to hear about 9/11, and Owen is a fire captain who was working on 9/11. That's how he's gotten the lung cancer, and also that he is the only survivor from his house from 9/11. It's okay. Um okay. At the same time, we're also experiencing TK going to propose to his boyfriend who doesn't look enthused at all, and then we realize that didn't go well. And then literally just the next thing is that Owen is going to TK's house and TK has tried to kill himself. Has like legitimately overdosed and is gone. And I was just like, "What? What the is happening right now? Like how what?" It was so intense for the first 5 minutes that I tear up with the 9/11 thing. I tear up with cancer because cancer is terrifying and scary and so, so sad. And then I'm happy because there's going to be a proposal, and then I can immediately see that that doesn't go well. And then here we have this man who literally just found out he has cancer and is an American hero, and then boom, his son is dead. Luckily, his son is not dead, and they are able to like get him on his side and get him to cough up the pills. And then he's like, I wasn't trying to kill myself. And then we find out that he has an addiction problem. And I have just from that moment throughout the show, nervous, just nervous for him the whole time. Where I'm just like, please don't backslide, please don't backslide. Now, in between all of these horrible things happening, Owen talks to a fire captain who's in Texas, who's like, hey, you rebuilt your station house when you lost everyone in 9/11. They bring it up a lot this episode. And we need you to help rebuild here because you are in a unique position where you know how to do that. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to move to Texas. Are you kidding? I'm a New Yorker. Forget about it. And then, he finds out he has cancer. His son almost dies. And he goes, yeah, maybe I'll just go to Texas. Let's just wrap this up here because this is not working out for us. And yeah, no, let's do it. Let's go to Texas. And so they're in Texas, and immediately Owen is trying to pick up this. As far as I can tell, it's an incredibly diverse team. It's one of the things that I want to say it was the deputy chief from Texas is talking about, where he's like, there's a lot of ingrained, like good old boy fashion stuff, and maybe you can bring us into the 21st century. And Owen's like, all right. And so he goes and picks up Marjan Marwani, who was in Miami, and so a female firefighter. That's already a big jump. Also Muslim, so celebrates Islam or practices Islam. She's even got a hijab, which very cool in terms of representation. I did have the thought of, does that make her more flammable if she's not wearing the helmet? It's a stupid thought, but it was my first thought. Or not my first thought, but it's a thought I had. And then he goes to Chicago and he grabs Paul, and Paul is a black guy. And I was like, is that diversity that we're missing? Just a black guy? And later it is revealed that Paul is a trans man. And I was like, oh, okay. That's why that's more diverse. And then I Googled, and the actor really is a trans man. And I had no idea. And I would never have any idea because, for the most part, especially if you get to transition early, you there's really just no telling. I know I was watching Euphoria with Hunter Schafer, and there was literally parts of the storyline were about Hunter having been trans, and I didn't understand what was going on for a good couple of minutes because I was like, what are they talking about, people like them, and like what's happening? Because I didn't realize they were trans. And I think that's kind of nice, right? It didn't even cross my mind. And then they're like, oh, they're trans. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So Paul is trans. So a trans black man, which is, also pretty cool that they're gonna get to be a firefighter. Firefighters, I don't think get as much flack a as the police academy, or not the academy, but the police system. But there is still a lot of that, good old boy situation going on when it comes to diversity. So it's nice that he's really honing it in, especially in Texas. Like, good for you. And so he brings in those two. He also grabs Mateo Chavez, who he's just giving a chance because Mateo keeps failing the exam. And he's like, I don't think that you're actually dumb. You're not a failure. I think your brain works a little different. And I'm here to help because you are incredibly, like detail oriented and you're getting everything done. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. So he's got himself, his son, Mateo, Marjan Marwani, and Paul. I don't remember Paul's last name. And then we have Hoyt comes back, except he's not Hoyt because it's not True Blood anymore. He's Judd in this show, and Judd is an excellent name for him. Very much so suits him. And he is angry because he doesn't understand how some big city slicker is going to come in here and take over and just pretend like everyone hadn't died and what the hell. And he's given Owen like a what for. And I totally get it. I can feel it in my soul where it's like everyone you loved and worked with for years and they're all gone. And now it just feels like the institution wiped them away like they never mattered or existed. We just replaced them and moved on. And that is a horrible, horrible feeling. And he leaves because he's like, "You're not even going to reinstate me, are you?" And Owen's just like, "I don't know. It's not time. Like, you still have too much PTSD for me to be able to reinstate you." And then he goes downstairs and just starts crying. And I immediately was like, there has to be something going on here. Like, there has to be a shrine or something. And sure as shit, yeah, there's a shrine right there. And he's sitting, or he's like, I don't want to say he falls over because it's not that dramatic, but he, like, goes down. That's more dramatic. Fine. He falls over kind of while crying. And he's, on the fire truck, like, going down. And you look up and there's a shrine to everybody that they lost. And Owen had also just talked to him about how he's got like a little piece of the metal um, from the Twin Towers because it got that hot that like the metal was molten and reforming. And he goes, it's just to remind me. And so the fact that he put that together for this team, he goes, it's so we can see them every time we go out. They're always with us. And Judd is just like, thank you so much. And Owen's just like, you're welcome. You're not ready to come back. You got PTSD. And that's that. And then we also get these like snippets now of Liv Tyler's character, Michelle. And she is straight up like verbally assaulting a man. She goes to his house and then starts screaming at him about like, where's my sister? Where's my sister? And I was just like, what is happening right now? Well, basically, that is her sister's boyfriend from 3 years prior. And her sister is missing. And he's the last person to have ever seen her. So she's like, you did it. And she's harassing him. He's got restraining orders and everything against him, where he's like, get away from me. You're making my life miserable. And then as soon as she starts to walk away, this kid like falls and shudders over because he's having an asthma attack, which is bananas to happen so quickly. All right. I got to fix the camera. 1 second. So the kid falls over from like his asthma attack, and she's like, "Hey, you need to take him to a clinic. He needs an inhaler. He could die." And you basically get the gist where like the dad is maybe illegal, maybe the whole family is illegal. They certainly cannot go to a doctor because they don't want to be on any record, and so they're nervous about that. And she's like, "Fine, I work with a clinic. We don't ask questions." And she gives him his number, and then she leaves. And then a little bit later in the episode, they call her because he's having another attack. She brings him an inhaler, and he's like, "Hey, uh, just so you know, we saw a blue truck leave with your sister that night, and Dustin didn't go," which is the boyfriend. And she's like, "What? That's a lead. Thank you so much." And they just had never said anything because, once again, scared to talk to the cops, which is just a really sad reality that is very much so the reality in Texas. And I'm sure other places, but for sure there. So, something that I really find interesting about Liv Tyler, just as a person, is she talks so ethereally, like, which suited her very well in Lord of the Rings. And then I saw her in The Leftovers, and she still got that very ethereal voice. So then I realized, oh, she wasn't acting. That's just how she sounds. Because she's the same way in Lone Star. Um, and it's one of those things where, like, for how intense she's behaving, literally throwing fits, she's getting arrested by Carlos, who we do love. And it's so intense. And but her voice is just so soft and sweet, and it's such a juxtaposition, and I just find that really funny and interesting. Um and something I notice is that they really build up that everybody that we're dealing with is a good person, right? Like Owen, American hero, 9/11 hero, firefighter hero, TK hero, firefighter. Just because he's an addict doesn't mean he's not a good person, especially since he's clean, and doing his best to keep himself together. Liv, paramedic, captain, or her name's Michelle in the show, but a paramedic captain who runs a free clinic on the side. She goes down to the homeless encampment that's underneath an underpass to help people. Really good person, you know? It's all built up and it makes you immediately trust all of these characters, which I think is really valuable when it comes to a show like this. Um, then we have the first kind of save that happens where the whole team shows up, and that is a food allergy save, where it is like the guy I think put too many peppers or something in his friend's food as like a prank, and the guy ends up being allergic, and they have to do like I think they cut into him. I don't know if it's a tracheotomy, but it's something very intense. And Owen goes to like take over the situation. And then Michelle is like, absolutely not, sir. I'm the paramedic captain. And in this county, I outrank you because it's a medical emergency. And I'm like, oh crap. We're going to have like, here we go. We're going to have a thing, like a rivalry. And he just goes, well, all right. And I was like, what? Well, all right. Where's your masculinity at? You're not showing any of that toxicity we're so used to in TV, movies, and real life. And then she saves his life and he's like, hey, great job. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Thanks for, listening and following the rules. And I was just like, what a cool way to behave. Thank you so much. And then let me see. Oh, when Owen is talking to his team about his skincare routine and how important that is. And he says something about using a malachite something. I was like, what? The crystal? I just found that adorable. For one, because showcasing a man taking care of himself and using skincare very important. Men, skincare is for anyone who has skin, okay? Men, woman, non binary, however you want to be labeled or not labeled, you can be labeled as a human being with skin, probably. Take care of it. Wear sunscreen, put on moisturizer, wash your face for Christ's sake. Wear a mask if you can afford it every now and again, like take care of your body. So I really love that. That not only is he non judgmental with anything so far, but also sharing and no no preconceived notions, no judgment to them, no self consciousness about, oh yeah, I like to wear all this stuff. There's no gender to it. It's just, yeah, take care of yourself. No matter who you are, you got to do this, this, and this. And I think that's important to be seen on a screen because a lot of people do, whether we realize it or not. We emulate, right? We want to be represented, and therefore we also want to learn our lessons, especially as children, watching TV. So good on them for this storyline. I know it seems so little, but I love it. It's beautiful. Um, Hoyt, I'm sorry, Judd is from Seguin in this show, and I used to live there. I've lived a couple different places in Texas. I moved quite a bit, and one of the places I lived was Seguin. So I just found that really crazy because it is a small town, at least when I was there. And then, yeah. So we go from that nice kind of light moment where Judd is talking to his wife, Grace, who is phenomenal. And she's like, well, if the captain doesn't think you're ready, you need to consider it. And he said, go to therapy. And I agree, you need to go to therapy. And Judd's just like, therapy's not for me. I want to talk about my feelings. And she's like, Judd, better talk about your feelings. And then he does. He goes to therapy. And it's like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to you're supposed to put on sunscreen and moisturizer and you're supposed to go to therapy when something horribly traumatic happens to you or honestly ever. Just go to therapy. It's good for you in general. And you're supposed to talk to your wife and listen and respect each other and it's really beautiful and so comforting to get to see something like that and to feel Like, no matter who they throw in this mix, they're safe. And that's really lovely. And so we have this nice, lovely moment where she's like, go therapy. And he's like, I guess I'll consider it. I don't want to talk about my feelings. That's not how I was raised, but I'll, change because I'm a healthy, wonderful human being. And then there's a accident. So then they have to go, and this accident is, oh, it's rough, right? And then the lady that they pull out of the car and they're like, we got to get her out. We got to get her out. She is very pregnant. This lady's not conscious. And then they pull her out and they're checking on her. They're doing baby vitals to the stomach and to her. And she wakes up and she's panicked because she's like, oh my God, where's my baby? Where's my baby? And they're like, it's okay, ma'am. You're fine. The baby seems fine. Strong heartbeat. And she goes, no, my 10-month-old. And I lost it on the train. I was just like, there's a baby. I can't deal with this. I'm not going to watch a TV show where we have an entire firehouse being exploded and then 9/11, lung cancer, OD, missing sister, you know, immigrants being scared, homeless people being a little bit scared. And then, you got a pepper allergy. Okay, that one is a little bit, it was funny, so I can deal with it. And then we've got PTSD, lots of trauma, missing baby. I was like, if this baby's dead, I'm not watching any more episodes. I will not tolerate this level of emotional manipulation. 911 Lone Star. Baby's not dead. You know where the baby is though? In a tree. In a tree. In its carrier, like good on that freaking what's the thing that holds the baby? Baby holder. Baby car seat. The baby car seat. In a tree. And then they've got to do like a tree extraction. And then, oh my God. Oh, I remember now. And I feel just so much stress from it. Then they do their baby extraction, except you don't know if it was successful because the car seat falls out and it hits the ground, and you see that happen. And the lady, the mom, who's also very pregnant, is screaming because she thinks her baby just fell out of the tree. And then, but the firefighter is holding the baby. They just had to cut the car seat out. So the car seat fell and they were still holding the baby. But my God, the level of adrenaline that hit me during this episode. I could not handle it. Okay. Um so my note for this section of the episode says this is so insane and so intense and I am hooked. And yeah, that's exactly how that was. That's how that went. That's how that felt. Then I really noticed like a very flirty vibe between Liv and Rob, so between Michelle and Owen. I was like, "Ooh, which one of you is going to call the other captain cuz you both can do it?" And then they go to like a honky tonk. I don't know. I feel like it looked a little nicer than that. They're at a bar. And then like not wait, Judd is there with his wife Grace and Michelle is there with Carlos, I want to say. And then Owen and TK show up, and Michelle is just like, hey, come on, come two step. And he's like, oh no. And she's like, you gotta, you're the new guy. And then they two step to Boot Scootin' Boogie, and I had just such a fun time with that. I don't know if you guys know that song, but it's like, I'm not singing it. Never mind. I don't know what I'm thinking. Look up Boots Getting Boogie. And they dance, and she's like, hey, you're good. And he's like, yeah, 2-7 was a big thing in New York in the 90s or something like that. And I was like, it was? Really? You guys had like a cowboy bar situation? So that happens. And then Grace comes and talks to Owen while Judd's not paying attention. And she's just basically, she's like, hey, I understand how you feel. And I think you might be right. But also, he's got no reason to live or to try if he's not working. So really, you're making it worse by not letting him back on the team. And Owen's like, I'll take it into consideration. And he does. And he brings Judd back in, but Judd has to go to therapy. And don't worry, he does, because everyone in this show is exactly how you want humans to be. Any main character in this show, at least. And then he starts coughing again. So you're just like, oh yeah, he's sick. And then Grace talks to Judd and she's like, you need to apologize to him for how you behaved in the firehouse. Judd does apologize, and then Owen's like, how about I see you in the station house, like come back. I don't know. It's just all around. It's so wonderful and so warm. And that is the season, like the very, very first episode. Do you know how amazing of a writing team you have to be that, like, to fit that much in to a four? I've been talking about it for as long as the episode is. Now, to be fair, I did recap everything that happened, so it makes sense. I mean, I'm missing a little bit of the dialogue, but I also got a little bit of the spice. So then we go into the next episode, and this is where I'll try my best to be faster. So the next episode is really weird because we get to see like a superpower that Paul has, but we don't see it very often, and it is that Paul is incredibly observant, basically like detective status. And they get a call because someone killed themselves. But we see that happen where she gets really itchy, and then she gets like paranoid, and then she just jumps out of a window, like slams her head on it, I think, a few times, and then jumps out, and you're just like, whoa, what just happened? I think something else that's revealed in the next episode is that Grace is a 911 operator, which I don't think we see in the first episode. So that was interesting. And then you find out, oh, no, we do find that out in the first one because she says she was the operator who was on the phone with Judd, so on the phone with her husband, when she was informing him to be like, get your team away from there where they explode. She was on the phone with him. Oh my gosh. That's so intense. Anyway, so Grace gets this call. The 126 goes out there, and the people start like going nuts basically, and the medical team is trying their best to like stop it from happening, and they make a lot of bird box jokes, and then everybody's like trying to hold them, trying to stop people from killing themselves. A couple of people still manage to hurt themselves. People are dying, and then Paul is like looking around, and he's asking a couple of questions with lunch, and then he's like, it's mercury poisoning. And he opens the sandwich, and there's mercury, like so much of it sitting in one sandwich. There's so much that there's no way someone would have bit into that and not seen like silver drip out of their mouths. Anyway, they've got mercury poisoning, and they figure out that it was the caterer. They call the caterer, bring him back, and then they're like, you know what happened? And he's like, yeah, they never tipped me. And I was just like, what the hell? What kind of bogus ass reason to kill a whole bunch of people, you absolute Looney Tune? So that's a lame motive for murder, if you ask me. And then um, Owen's having a really hard time with the fact that he has cancer. He hasn't told anybody. I think this is the episode where he tells Judd. Like, Judd is being really pissy and is like, I don't want to work with you, and I don't think this is going to be a good fit. And then Owen's just like, I have cancer. And Judd's like, okay. And that's kind of how that goes, which is interesting. And then Michelle continues to like badger Carlos. Carlos is a police officer. Um, about the blue truck thing, and he's like, look, I'll look into it, but you need to stop making me arrest you because this is getting uncomfortable. This is, not okay. He has a restraining order. Stay away from that area. And she's like, I have to find my sister. You know how much she means to us. And he's like, yeah. I think this is also an episode where you do get a piece of like Carlos and TK going at it, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize TK was going to bounce back so fast. And then TK's very much so a dick about it. He's like, oh, it's nothing. And immediately Carlos is like, okay, cool. And it's just like, oh, that's really sad. And I'm happy to report that that is not the case for very long. Um, so then the next the next thing I think I really loved about this episode is the barbacoa happens in this episode. This like racist lady who literally made me so angry. She's there in her backyard, and she keeps calling the fire department or the police, and she calls the fire department this time because she sees smoke, and it's because her neighbors are, Latin, and she is an asshole, And she's like, look at them, they're burning stuff. They've got an underground fire pit because that's how you legitimately make barbacoa. Now, I will tell you that there is very few places in Texas anymore. I believe there's only one that has a state mandate that for cultural reasons they can make barbacoa that way. But you can have an underground pit, you crazy lady. So she calls the cops and she's throwing a huge fit. And then they explain that she's always harassing them. And then she's like, well, you need to stop with your ethnic blah, 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 which, okay, like this lady has obviously never even had a barbacoa taco because that's how you end racism right there, okay? Eat that taco, lady, and you're not going to have a problem with it anymore. She made me livid, this lady. And so, but, oh, so she's throwing her whole fit and she's like, you don't understand how they are and blah, blah, blah. And as someone who is also Latin, F that lady, okay? You suck and you need to eat a taco so that you're not talking anymore, okay? Just eat, shut up. Cállate tu boca, you frickin' up. So, she sucks. And then Owen arrests her for making a false report. And I was like, oh my God. Wow. She got it. She got what she deserves. And then you know what? You don't deserve a taco because tacos are delicious and you deserve white rice. And that's it. No salt, no flavor. You mean, mean old rat. And that's episode 2. It's pretty good. Lots of emotions there. Episode 3 really peeved me because they're at a grain silo and it's basically like if corn had a baby with um like quicksand when it's in this silo and these kids are, effing around and they find out and they're stuck in the silo. And this is where Judd is like so impressive because he goes in, he's the lead for this rescue mission because he has experience with it because those freaking silos are all up and down the hill country out there. And he's explaining, he's like, it's this amount of pressure per square inch, this amount of like pounds per square inch. It's like 1,200 pounds. We can't just pull the kid up because we'll rip him in half. And I just thought, what? Kind of want to see it, but also don't ruin all that food. And they're figuring it out. And TK gets a bad little, just a hair up his ass and doesn't listen, gets off of the, pulley system that they've got, gets stuck himself, you know, after he tries to save Marwani because Marwani is doing the right thing, but she like falls off of it's basically like snowshoes is what they're using, but they're squares and it's for the corn so that they don't sink. It like evenly distributes the weight and it helps you not sink in like your Falcor in the Neverending Story. So she falls in and then TK goes to save her and he undoes his harness because that makes no sense. And oh, that's what happens to Marwani is her rope came undone from the top. She didn't even do anything wrong. It just snapped and it pushed her and then she fell in. And then TK goes to save her and Judd is like, don't TK, we're good. I'll tell her how to get out. Like, don't do this. And then TK does it and both of them go down and they had already been like sucking out the corn and were doing a great job for the person who was originally stuck in there. And now they have to go and like cut open the grain silo from the outside and all 3 of them come out. It's very intense and it made me very mad at TK because he made the situation so much worse. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to like him at all. He's going to be an annoying, horrible little character to have to deal with. He's gonna have his problems because his boyfriend broke up with him and he's treating his, you know, I was gonna say boy toy, but we know it's Carlos. He's treating Carlos like crap, and it's gonna be all woe is me. And I'm happy to report that aside from this episode, TK never behaves like that. So that's really good. He Judd even like takes him to the side and he's like, "What was that, dude? What are you doing? Why would you do that? That was very dangerous and very stupid." And TK's like, whatever, man. You don't tell me what to do. And he's like, what? Has no one told you what to do because your daddy's the captain? Because that's not how I'm going to roll. And I was like, you're damn right. That's not how you're going to roll, Juddy. Don't let him be like that. And he doesn't. And you know what happens? TK goes off because he's pissy and also probably embarrassed. And then he comes back later and he apologizes. And Judd apologizes for blowing up on him. And they move past it. And it is beautiful to see. That is adults working through problems. And I love it. Okay. So now we've got the steak eating contest. And that one, the paramedics are there as well. Like, and more in the forefront, obviously, because the steak eating competition thing is like it's this little girl against this big guy. And automatically I'm like, oh, she's going to win because that's what makes good TV. And she does win, but she's been downing so much water. And I think she has like she basically her bladder is way too full and it can't release. And so she's passing out and something's wrong with her kidneys. Like it's backing up and her stomach's distended and it looks disgusting. And it reminds me how much I never really want to be pregnant because it looks terrifying. Um, and it is hilarious because they managed to like get the I think it's a catheter, get the catheter in her and the bag fills up so fast and she's like, I'm gonna have to move this to something else. And when she goes to move it, that girl pees on everything, like straight flies across the room and it pees on the lady that was um emceeing and owns the restaurant. And she's like very pissy about it and just made me laugh really hard. Also, that's absolutely a thing in Texas is those like eating contests. I'm sure they're in more places, but where I am now, that is not a thing you would ever hear of, I don't think. Um, so yeah, steak. And then this is also where I think Michelle talks to Owen about the like the sister situation, her new information she found and like what she wants to do. And instead of him being like, let it go, it's been 3 years, he's just like, oh, okay, I understand. That's interesting, All right. Um, and then we've got the tornado episode. Now look, I'm not going to say that tornadoes aren't scary. What I will say is that I love them. And if you think, oh, you're a monster, those are horrible natural disasters that kill people and take lives and a lot of things, negative around them. I know, okay? I'm perfectly aware. But I've watched Twister so much as a kid, and I am so fascinated by tornadoes. And by the way, I am from Texas. I have been in tornadoes before floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, all of it. I've done all blizzards because I lived in Colorado in the mountains. I have been through them, and I'm not a normal person. So my reaction to extreme weather is excitement and an adrenaline rush and being intensely interested and not scared. So I loved this. I loved the like them rescuing, seeing the honestly, I just loved seeing the tornadoes for a second. And like to be fair, the tornado I was in was not very intense. It was at max like a F2. And I've seen a couple of them, but it's so rare that it actually touches down, because it happens a lot in Tornado Alley. So for me, it's also very like it's weird to say this because it's not a cool thing. Like it's a weird thing for me to enjoy, but it's almost like nostalgic when I see them. I love tornadoes so much, or like extreme weather, but specifically tornadoes. I cannot even lie. That as a teen, um, and if I'm being honest now, what I would have gone to school for if I thought I was smart enough, I would have gone to school to be a meteorologist and then I would have been a storm chaser. And one of the only reasons I didn't is because I know that I'm reckless and I would have hurt myself. Like there's no way I wouldn't have hurt myself. Um and I think that's important to know, right? It's important that if you like something pretty effed up, like, being very into tornadoes, now keep in mind, I don't like what they do in terms of people and houses and all of the destruction. None of that is fascinating to me. None of that. It is the tornado itself and how that works and how it looks and how powerful it can be. It's kind of like when people are like odd and like it's like Shark Week, right? Where we're like, we don't really understand this thing totally, and it's definitely terrifying and it hurts people sometimes and it's intense and we don't really understand it. So we're just going to watch a whole bunch of footage on it every year forever. And like sharks have a whole week dedicated. So actually, I think you will get it. If you're a Shark Week guy, what's your favorite animal? A hippo? Hippos are terrifying, right? I feel guilty about liking tornadoes because no one seems to understand me. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. I love tornadoes. Um, okay. The next episode was silly but also kind of scary. And that was they have to break up like a fight or deal with the aftermath of a fight at a male strip club, and it's all these women, and like one of them has like glitter in her eyes. That's hilarious to me. And I don't know, it's stupid. It's like a bachelorette party, and they got into it at the strip club, and I don't know why, but it's funny to me. Um, Grace kind of reveals to, I want to say Michelle, or yeah, I think it's probably Michelle, that like her and Judd have not been maritally intimate in like the 4 months since the accident happened because he's just in his head and can't do it. And I was just like, woo. So it's like a real problem. And and she's being patient with him and she figures out how to try, and they don't really show anything. They're very classy about that, but we allude to the fact that she is able to remedy that situation. And I think that's good for her. Um and this is also the episode where they deal with the bull semen factory that explodes because of all the hydrogen chinks that are like popping off everywhere. And because that one guy set fire to the place because he couldn't afford the stud fee for what he wanted. So he sets fire to it. Like, who does that? And they go in and save him, and everything's fine. But I think one of the main storylines I took from this, and I really loved it, was that Owen finds out that the treatment that he can do will stop him from being able to do the hair treatments he has. And the hair treatments he has makes him continue to have really wonderful, beautiful hair. And he is very self conscious and he cares a lot about his hair, and is someone who also cares a lot about their hair and feels like it is a huge piece of them. I can understand that, and he has to choose between getting better or looking the way he looks. And Judd is still the only one who knows that he's sick. And I thought it was just very sweet that he confides in him. Judd doesn't make fun of him. And Judd puts him in a cowboy hat and is like, don't worry, you look good in a cowboy hat because everyone does. So it'll be okay, buddy. And then he obviously decides to get his treatment, which is just very sweet. Okay, here we go. Friends like these. Emergencies include a rideshare trip gone awry, a farming accident, and a memorial service that may turn into another funeral. Ah, yes. This is where we meet Billy, who is played by Billy Burke. And if you don't remember who Billy Burke is, he's a great actor. He's in a lot of things. But if you're around my age, you're probably going to know him best for being Bella Swan's dad in the Twilight Saga. Except in this show, he sucks. He was the former captain of the 126, and he had to take a mandatory leave, and that's why he's still alive. So he wasn't working when the thing happened, when the explosion happened. So we also find out that he had to take his mandatory leave because he had cancer and was going through chemo, and so he had to take the leave for a year, and it was miserable. These are the type of people who they don't want to not be working. Work is everything to them. It is their life, it is their personality. It is probably a little bit of an addiction in a way, right? Because you're saving people and it's like that adrenaline and that feeling, and when it's gone, I bet there's a little piece of you that feels missing. So I don't like him. He's Pardon me. He is a very gray character, sometimes straight black character, but sometimes he's a character in the white. So it's really hard. So I'm going to say he's gray. You mix it all up. And in this season, it was really disappointing because Owen very much so wants a friend. and Owen confides in him that he also has cancer. So now the only people that know are Judd, the doctor, Owen, and now Billy. And Billy uses that information and goes and tells the deputy chief. And then the deputy chief has to call him in and be like, hey, you sick? Do we need to put you on leave? Are you not going to be able to do your job anymore? And it's like, are you freaking joking, Billy? Like, can you just be a pal, dude? And the answer is no, because he wants the 126. He thinks that the New Yorkers should go back home. Although I'm not wrong with California. That is where Owen is from, OG, and moves to New York when he's 13. So basically, we find out that Billy is wants to be his friend, but more than anything, he wants to win. We also find out that Billy used to date Michelle because Michelle warns Owen, and Owen is like, it'll be fine. Like, we're all going to get along, no problem. And the only reason Owen even meets Billy is because Owen goes and plays poker at Judd's house with Judd and Grace and all of his friends. And one of them is Billy. And Judd is like, he's not going to like you. He doesn't think you deserve the firehouse because you're not even from here. You wouldn't understand. And then they end up getting along during poker. So then they are, chatting afterwards. He tells him about the cancer. Then he goes and friggin' narcs on him and puts Owen in a stupid position because Owen is a little bit too full of himself, a little bit too much ego there. And basically, Owen's like, hey, you know what? I'm healthy enough that I could do the newbie exam that happens in full gear, which even they don't do. So why don't we just go ahead and set that up to show that I am strong enough to continue to do the job? Because Owen had told Billy how he had been doing his workout and felt like extremely tired trying to even do his workout. Judd actually had to come over and help him with the bar. And that is one of the reasons TK had kind of been given attitude and getting jealous because Judd was being really loving and sweet. And TK doesn't know about the cancer. So he certainly doesn't know that Judd knows. And he was like, what the hell is going on? Dad, are you okay? And, is what it is. So that's like the main thing that happens in that episode. The other big thing is that um, Owen puts Marwani in charge of the um, in charge of helping Mateo do his written exams because Mateo has failed 2 times or 3 times, and the next chance is the last chance. And then they realize that Mateo is dyslexic, so that's probably why he's failing these written exams. And Owen puts it together so that Mateo is going to be able to get the my goodness, is going to be able to get the exam spoken instead of written. It's an accommodation. It's a special accommodation. As someone who has ADHD, I am aware of this. Sometimes I can get like tests where I can take them for a longer amount of time, which literally seems like the opposite, something I would want as someone with ADHD in that type of environment, but it is what it is. So they're going to allow him to speak it, which also means that he's having a hard time learning because he's having to read all of the material. So Owen's like, Marwani, I want you to do it. And she's like, why? Because I'm the girl. And he goes, no, because you have the highest scores of anyone I've ever seen. And then she's like, oh, all right. That's right. I'm amazing and very smart and intelligent. And she decides to enlist the whole firehouse, and she has everyone like grab a chapter or a section and have them read it out and record themselves reading. And then Mateo listens to the recordings so that he can practice for the exam. And if that isn't inclusion and love and support and just the best type of friendships you could ever want, then I don't know what would be. It's so freaking touching. They have each other's back in every scenario that happens. And I love it. Like something I forgot to mention that happens to Marwani that's incredibly important is at the grain silo, she gets sucked under and she loses her hijab. And um, when she does that, there's like people filming, obviously, because the fire truck's out there and everything, and there's always people with cameras. There's people filming, and they film her pop up, and she's got her hair's out, and she does like a really way better than that, like a really good like hair twist, and then she realizes her hair's out, and she's like, oh no, and her entire squad rallies around her and covers her with jackets and everything so that she can protect her modesty and have a chance to put her hijab back on. And it's phenomenal. I can't believe I almost forgot to mention that. And she gets a lot of flack from her mosque where they're like, we don't think you should be here because we don't appreciate, you behaving that way. Plus, her Instagram is Firefox, and I just think that that's awesome. Luckily, she talks to, I think, Paul or Owen or one of the guys, and they're just like, don't leave your mosque because they've decided that you're too much. Show them that you are everything, like you don't need to go. You're not ashamed because you're saving lives. And I loved that. So it's very touching. Um, oh yeah. I don't F with snakes. Okay. Like if there was a snake NATO, I'm not into it. Not, I don't think I could even look. And they have a rattlesnake one where like, oh, the rattlesnake, I don't even know how to explain this. The rattlesnake is like in, okay, here's what it is. Ooh. Okay. I can talk about it. It's just that I have a hard time. Um, so this couple has a baby and they're finally going out without like the baby and they have a babysitter and the mom is being a mom and she's just like I have to check on my son. I need to look again. I'm not sure that I'm not ready. Maybe she's not a good babysitter, just like how new parents are and he's like, "Dude, chill. We're going to have dinner." How a lot of dads are. And then she was like, "No, please, I'll check the camera once." And she checks the camera once and she's like, "Oh, okay, he's in bed. He's safe. No problem." And then she's like, where's the babysitter?" And she doesn't hear her. She doesn't see anything. And then they see Snake sitting in the room there, all coiled up like the horrible demon monsters that they are. And she's like, and they call 911 and 911 gets there. And as 911 gets there, they are able to put like a plastic tub over the snake and get the baby out, and everything's fine. I was holding my breath the whole time that this situation is on screen, and I was just like, "That's a thing too, okay? That's an excellent reason not to live in Texas. Is that snakes just get into your house, just tra la la in, okay? One of them, more, I don't need it. Also, if you have an open septic tank, they'll get into your septic tank and then they pop up in your toilet. And I remember that being like news stories as a kid where they were like, a Texas gentleman found a very surprising thing when he opened his toilet this morning. Yeah, he found a way to have a heart attack really fast. I used to be so scared when those stories would come out that it would take me days before I would sit on a toilet again. I would like hold myself. I had the best thighs as a child, okay? Because I was squatting to pee and to poop. I'm not doing that. I'm not sitting on the. I needed that much space. Check it. I'll probably start checking my toilet again now because every time I think about it, I have a couple of days where I'm just like, there's not even an open septic here where I live. Anyway, moving on. So that happens, and then they're like, "Where is the babysitter?" And then they're like, "Well, do you have a basement or something?" And they're like, "Yeah." He's like, "I had paid her extra to do our laundry." And basically, they had done something to the house or something happened with the house. And all of the basement was a nest for snakes, for rattlesnakes. And this girl had been bitten just so much and is just unconscious in the middle of the floor. And they're able to use the fire extinguishers to extinguish away the snaky snakes. Um, I don't, it was traumatizing for me. Okay. I don't mess with that stuff. So I didn't enjoy it. Um, yeah. And then we help a man with dementia that is also incredibly intense because he thinks that someone is breaking into his house. So he has like a knife and he's screaming, and it's Grace on the phone, who is amazing, amazing Grace, if you will. And he's like, I'm armed. I need to find my wife. I need to find my wife. And then there's another 911 call at the same address. And they're like, someone's trying to break in. They're trying to break in. They're armed, blah, 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 blah. And it is just, oh my gosh, it's horrible. It's horrible. And okay. So here's what happens is the guy has dementia. He is at his old address. He calls it. Grace is able to get a hold of the wife, who is like, yeah, that's where we used to live, and puts him on the phone with her so that she can hear his voice. And she's like, honey, you're not home. You're not home. And he all of a sudden is like, what? I'm not. And he realizes it. Well, um the grandparents of the child that's also in the bedroom with them have a gun because they hear an intruder. And then the guy with dementia gets taken away. He's not in trouble. Obviously, he wasn't actually breaking in or doing anything wrong. And then the lady on the phone, the other call, the one that was like someone's trying to break in, that wasn't the guy with dementia saying someone's trying to break in, because that happened twice in a row, the same house. She's on the phone and she goes, oh my God, my husband's having a heart attack. And they were like, okay, fire and rescue, we're going to come in. We're coming to get you. Please unlock the door. No one unlocks the door. They do the little battery ram opening. TK's the first one in, and he's like, okay, I'm here. And boom, the freaking grandkid shoots TK. What? So that's how that works. So TK gets shot. And then, um, yeah, that's the end of the episode. And I was just like, holy crap. I thought we were going to lose him to addiction or something, or a fire. But no, no. A 9-year old's going to shoot him, or an 8-year old. And the 8-year old just had grabbed the gun when the grandfather got scared, wasn't on the phone like the grandmother was, so didn't realize that the people coming in weren't intruders. And he was just being a brave little guy in Texas. And, we got guns there. So then we go to um, the hospital. And we go to the hospital. TK is alive, which is great. He's fine. I don't think he goes into a coma for this. Maybe he does for like a little bit, but not for long. He does go into a coma sometimes, just so you guys know. Heads up, TK's in a coma sometimes. He's always in the hospital. And um when TK is out, one of his main concerns, and it's so beautiful, is he's worried about the kid. He's like, the kid's going to think he's a monster for the rest of his life. He's going to be terrified, blah, blah, blah. And they call the family and then make us stop by and see the kid. And TK talks to him to let him know, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just trying to keep your family safe. You need to be more careful, but everything's okay. I'm okay. Are you okay? I mean, just phenomenal, wonderful. What a beautiful way to handle such a terrifying situation, right? Like that level of empathy. How do you think of it? It's, I don't know. It made me tear up for sure. I think it's making me tear up again. Um on the other hand, we meet Judd's dad, who like gets his back knocked out, and Judd luckily goes and checks on him, and we find out this isn't the first time. And then he falls later into a glass table, and he's just cut to ribbons. And he calls Grace, and he just doesn't want Grace to tell Judd because he doesn't want to have to um go to a home. And it's just so sweet and also so sad. They get him a life alert bracelet, and they agree that some people will come visit and make sure he's okay and stuff. And I think that's a good compromise, right? Because he's still young enough to live on his own, but a little too old to not have someone around in case something bad happens. And he's so sweet. So that's a lovely, Grace is just the best. wife, and Judd is great. I love them so much as a couple. And on top of that, I am not a religious woman. I'm a spiritual woman. I am not religious. I grew up in such a religious household that was so full of hate and anger and terrifying just awfulness that I don't have good associations. And I think historically we can all agree that there are not very many good associations, you know, when it comes to wars and murders and all of that stuff that happens religious to religion, all of that. Now, I was raised Bible Belt Christian, you know, non denominational, evangelical Christian. And I have in my life met one woman who is Christian, who, in my opinion, is truly Christian. Her name was Ashley, and she was um, my assistant manager when I was in my very early 20s. She was a wonderful, beautiful human being. Is she's still alive? Aside from that, including everyone I grew up with, not good Christians. They're the judgmental, hateful, homophobic, racist, xenophobic monsters that we see on the TV all the time. Now, Grace and other people in this show in the future are Christian, and they are exactly what you would expect a Christian to be: helpful, loving, kind, understanding, willing to go the extra mile, everything that Christianity should be, everything that Jesus was actually about. You know, is there ever once a mention of TK being gay and that being a problem? No. Or Carlos being gay and that being a problem? No. Or the fact that Carlos is Mexican and TK is white? No. Or the fact that Marwani is Muslim? No. Never is it a problem. Is it an issue? Is it even a conversation? It's just love and kindness and respect and a lack of judgment. And that is so refreshing to see. And honestly, maybe kind of healing for someone like me who grew up with just the worst kind of Christians. So thank you, 911 Lone Star, for showing what a Christian should be, because it's Grace and, spoiler alert, in the future, it's Tommy. I loved them. They're wonderful people, and they make me have faith again in the institutions. I've always had faith. I'm very, like I said, a spiritual person. Okay. So, then for the season finale, lots of stuff happens. Michelle's been hunting stuff down. She realizes that her sister was in with a not so great crowd and that her sister had kind of started deteriorating. And then she kind of puts together, just through context clues and remembering stuff from a couple years back, that her sister seems to have been schizophrenic. And her sister had called her several times the night that she disappeared. And Michelle didn't answer because Michelle was doing an open mic night because her sister was constantly supporting her and saying, yeah, you go do that. Go live your dream. And Michelle was too nervous. And that night she had finally gotten the courage to do it and her sister was calling her, but she went on stage. So she ignored it and then her sister's gone. And that's a lot of the guilt that she was carrying. Well, she finally is able to let that go, and she's in the homeless encampment, and we find out that that's where Iris, the sister, has been the whole time. She's schizophrenic, she's having a very, very long episode, and Michelle finally finds her and sees her and just allows her to be there. You know, takes her to the hospital at one point to clean her up and make sure she's okay. And then she's at the homeless encampment, and Michelle just allows that, gives her that grace, and sits with her in her little tent. And that's the end of that storyline. And I think that's lovely. Iris is not dead. You know, and there's someone there who's going to watch her and take care of her when she's ready and if she ever needs it. And then on the other hand, TK doesn't know if he ever wants to be a firefighter anymore. And then there's like, I want to say that this is when this happens, where there's like the, yeah, the bus that he's on while he's having this like crisis. Yeah, because he's bleeding still from the gunshot wound, gets hit by something and he goes under and it like hits a fire hydrant and he's trying to get the driver out, who's the only person who's stuck. And the driver's like, baby, you can let me go, because he can't get her out. and then he's able to like give her mouth to mouth, and you think that we lost her because we it looks like we lost TK, but Owen's able to pull TK out because TK hasn't come back to work yet. And then he's able to get the bus driver out. No one dies. And she's like, thank you so much. And so TK realizes that he does want to continue to save lives, and he ends up not leaving the fire department then. And Owen is successfully going through chemo. So we have TK almost dying, then surviving. We have Owen still being okay, Judd being okay. Billy, who was trying to take Owen's job, is sitting there golfing with Owen while Owen's trying to be like, please be reasonable. Please don't, behave this way. And he's like, well, is what it is, city boy. I got to do it. And it's raining. And Owen's like, let's go inside. And he's like, what, do you got a problem with the little rain, Owen? And he's like, I guess not, Texas. And he goes, fine, New York. And he goes to swing and he gets electrocuted by lightning. And then Owen is able to carry him 200 yards or whatever to the clubhouse and saves his life. And that is enough proof that Owen is physically well enough to continue doing his job. So that is wonderful. Owen keeps his job. Billy's in the hospital. Owen's like, let's bury the hatchet. We'll continue to be friends. He gets him a book called Poker for Dummies. It's hilarious. Um, Michelle finds her sister, Iris. TK reignites his love for saving people and not feeling so lost. And I do believe this is around where he's also like, yeah, I'm into you, Carlos, and they're really, truly a thing. So it ends very much so on a happy note. And it's a wonderful season of television. Just really well done, very emotional. It makes you feel, it makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you love the characters immediately. And I think it's a wonderful season of television. The ratings for me are kind of low when you think about it. I don't know. I feel like some people don't like when stuff is emotional because it's emotional. Like, oh, they wrote this way to elicit emotions. Yeah, of course they did. That's how that works. I think it's wonderful and beautifully done. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Binge It Babe podcast, episode 5. And next time you see me, we're going to do season 2, which will be very soon, obviously. So I'll see you guys later for season 2 of 911 Lone Star. My camera is dying. You guys have a wonderful day. Figure out how to make yourself some barbacoa tacos, or ask me, or look at my TikTok. I make them on there. And just enjoy your life. Enjoy the media that you watch, the content that is created for you, and go at your life with kindness. Bye, babes.